Hi, everyone. I'll be presenting on the American Library Association's book bans Black History Month display. So imagine you're a senior librarian in your local public library. A patron approaches you about the Black History Month display in the front of the library and asks you to remove it. They are upset because most of the books are on a banned book list, and they believe speaking on race-related issues is offensive and inappropriate for young audiences, but just in general. So principle number one of the ALA Code of Ethics says we provide the highest level of service to all library users through appropriate and usefully organized resources, equitable service policies, equitable access, and accurate, unbiased, and courteous responses to all requests. We uphold the principles of intellectual freedom and resist all efforts to censor library resources is principle number two, which is really actually pertinent to this situation. Principle number 7 says we distinguish between our personal convictions and professional duties and do not allow our personal beliefs to interfere with fair representation of the aims of our institution or the provision of access to their information resources. Principle number 9 is really interesting because it just came into effect in 2020, and it says we affirm the inherent dignity and rights of every person. We work to recognize and dismantle systemic and individual biases, to confront inequity and oppression, to enhance diversity and inclusion, and to advance racial and social justice in our libraries, communities, profession, and association through awareness, advocacy, education, collaboration, services, and allocation of resources and spaces. And so if we're talking about a Black History Month display, allocation of resources and spaces is actually really interesting and important. Excuse me. Some pros of banned books removed from library displays for Black History Month. Books may not be age appropriate and introduce topics to young audiences that may not be intellectually developed enough to deal with. Pros, parents are able to censor what their children are reading, giving them choice to pick and choose the type of things that their children are digesting. Banning books from one form doesn't eliminate the ability to access content, right? We can go find this information somewhere else. So what does it matter if it's banned from the library? Parents are given the opportunity to engage in conversations with their children by themselves. Censoring books can reduce the amount of hate speech people are exposed to. Some pros, regardless of books being banned, once again, this is a pro and con, the information is still readily available. We are able to, because the ALA actually tracks where these requests come from in terms of removing books, they know exactly the top 3 reasons as to why people are asking for these books to be removed, and they are for offensive language, a narrative unsuited to any age group, or content that's explicitly sexually explicit. A narrative unsuited to any age group is actually really interesting to me because I don't really exactly know what that means. But anyway, cons, banned books are disproportionately from Black, Indigenous, and 2S LGBTQIA folks. Literature exposes people to topics they may have little to no lived experience or will never have that lived experience. So it's good to read about other people's. Banning books based off of identity can lead to the erasure of marginalized people's voices in the mainstream. And even the way I frame that as problematic, because Black peoples, Indigenous peoples, 2S LGBTQ folks, other racialized peoples live in the mainstream, we're just otherized. And censoring books reduces access to certain information. It's just, if you censor them, they're not there for children to access in an equitable, free manner. And libraries are not the only source of obtaining literature. People will buy the books they want, so why not have it in a free and equitable way to access it at libraries? So in terms of the information professionals' ethical responsibilities, like what's going on in terms of core values for ALA librarianship, it is a responsibility of librarians to provide access, confidentiality and privacy, democracy, diversity, education and lifelong learning, intellectual freedom, the public good, the preservation, professionalism, service, social responsibility, and sustainability. So in terms of banning Black History Month books or a display, it's once again really pertinent to kind of lay out principle number 9. We affirm the inherent dignity and rights of every person. We work to recognize and dismantle systemic and individual biases, to confront inequity and oppression, to enhance diversity and inclusion, and to advance racial and social justice in our libraries, communities, profession, and association through awareness, putting up a Black History Month display is an awareness. Advocacy, making sure that we have equitable access to book is part of that advocacy. Education, also part of the Black History Month display. Collaboration, services, and allocation of resources and spaces. So making sure that we're using our professionalism in dealing with this patron, being neutral, not necessarily putting our principles and values, but the core principles and values of the ALA librarianship onto these people when we're talking to the patrons, and really just letting them know we are here as librarians to ensure education and lifelong learning. Intellectual freedom is really important to us. We really encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion, and access, and social responsibility. We have a social responsibility to make sure that books are available to people. And so really, it's controversial in this day and age. You know, we're sitting in an age where the governor of Florida is getting rid of African-American history in AP courses and kind of censoring what you're allowed to talk about when you're talking about Black peoples, which is really dangerous because people don't even necessarily believe that slavery existed or that Black people have been, unfortunately, because of colonialism, white supremacy, been oppressed. So that's extremely dangerous when people are already in the age of information and denying that things are happening. People deny the Holocaust as well, even though we know that it happened because we have physical proof of people and places and history. So one of the points that I really wanted to encourage everyone to kind of like read, maybe, I don't know, kind of pay attention to is like Public Space, Public Discord, and Public Libraries by C. Alstead and A. Curry. Where else are you able to have conversations about public discourse? Where else are you in a like a free and equitable manner? Where else should you be able to have these discussions, contentious discussions, other than the library? So I mean, this is a perfect place where we can have like be in a position of a neutrality to a certain extent. Like as a Black person, as somebody who wants to be a librarian, I hold my identity of Blackness everywhere I go. And so if somebody's coming at me about my Blackness, I don't know how neutral I can be, but I will, try to educate as much as I can, but those public libraries really can create public discord. So I appreciate you listening to me, and hopefully we will kind of make sure that we adhere, if we're going to be going into the librarianship profession, specifically in information professions, to adhere to these core values and principles as we move through our profession. Thank you.